Welcome to homework day 5. Today we're going to refresh our memory on converting units. For the most part, this is something you should have seen before. I do want to make sure that you have the skills necessary to use this throughout the unit. But again, this is mostly a review topic. If you do have questions, jot them down because we're going to go through this pretty quickly and we're only going to spend one day on it so we can really dive into our ratios and proportions. Here on the first page, okay, I want to just start by reviewing the difference between metric units and customary units. Okay, customary units are the units we use in the United States. Okay, and to convert those, we're going to be using proportions today. Okay, now metric units do not require proportions. Okay, they require some knowledge of decimals. Okay, so we really want to make sure we're understanding the difference between the two. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at measures of length. Okay, and if we're talking metric, okay, we have meters, there's centimeters, kilometers, hectometers, millimeters, decameters, and decimeters. Okay, now switching over to customary, okay, what do we measure length in the US? Okay, well, we can measure things in inches. We can measure in yards, feet, miles, etc. Okay, moving down to mass or weight. Okay, when we're talking metric, we're talking about grams. Okay, so there's kilograms, hectograms, decagrams, centigrams, decigrams, milligrams. Okay, you'll notice that the prefixes for our metric units are the same with different base units. Okay, whereas our customary units are all different. Okay, they're a little bit more complicated. We have ounces, pounds, and tons, to name a few. Okay, and then looking at volume, okay, liquid volume, okay, how do we measure liquid? Well, for metric units, okay, we have liters, milliliters, centiliters, deciliters, kiloliter, decaliter, hectoliter, and then we also have cubic centimeters, which is kind of a funky one. And then pints. Okay, pints is one of our ways of measuring liquid for customary units. We also have what's called fluid ounces. Okay, fluid because we're talking liquids. We could measure liquids in cups, quarts, and gallons. Okay, and those ones you should be fairly familiar with. Okay, go buy a gallon of milk. Okay, get a quart of soup, things like that. Okay, and then time doesn't really fall under either of these categories, but we still measure time. Okay, so we could have seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, and we could keep going in either direction. Okay, you could tenth of a second, you could do centuries, etc., etc. Okay, so hopefully this is all review things you're familiar with. Okay, when you're all set, go ahead and flip the page. On this page, I've just listed some abbreviations for you. Okay, you do need to be familiar with what these are. Okay, you're not always given the written words. Sometimes you're given the abbreviation, so please be familiar with those. And I've also given you our metric chart. Okay, I believe you learned it. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Okay, you have your base units in the middle. Okay, your bigger units, okay, are over here to the left. Okay, you can see this here. As you move to the left, it gets bigger. As you move to the right, it gets smaller. Okay, so we have meters, one of our base units. Okay, and then you can see our different prefixes. Grams is another, your different prefixes, and then liters is another, your different prefixes. And we went over those on the previous page. Okay, converting metric units really should be relatively easy. Okay, so we have some practice ones here. Okay, we have 1,000 centiliters. Okay, so that's right here. And we want to convert that to liters. Okay, so from moving centiliters to liters, I'm moving 2 spaces to the left. So I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move 2 spaces to the left. I get 10 liters. Okay, for number 2, I have 120 millimeters. Okay, so millimeters is right here. And I'm converting to centimeters. So I'm just moving 1 space to the left. So move your decimal over and you get 12. See how I'm using that chart? Okay, really if you know your chart, it's a matter of moving decimals. Okay, we have, oh, this one's similar, 1,200 centiliters to liters. So again, 1, 2, 1, 2, we're getting 12 liters. 2 centimeters, starting here, and going to millimeters. So 1 space to the right, you're adding a 0, you get 20. Okay, we get 11,000 liters. Okay, so starting at our base unit, and we want to convert to kiloliters. Okay, so we're moving 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right. Okay, 1, 2, 3, you get 11. Okay, next we have 10 kiloliters, or centiliters, excuse me, to milliliters. Okay, move 1 space to the right, you're adding a 0, you get 100. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is try 7, 8, and 9 on your own, and I will check them tomorrow. When you're all set, flip the page. Okay, here's really the focus of this lesson, and this is where this ties into ratios and proportions. Okay, this is the prior knowledge you should already have. Okay, we want to go through this and make sure. Okay, so it says converting customary units. Okay, so these are the ones we use in the US. It says use a proportion. Identify which 2 units you're working with. Use your reference sheet and or prior knowledge to write, I was supposed to say conversion, I apologize. Conversion factor as a ratio. Okay, so we want to take that conversion factor, write it as a fraction. We'll then set up a proportion, right? We got 2 fractions that equal to each other. Fill in what's given, and we'll solve. Okay, you can cross multiply and should be all set. Okay, so I have 2 examples here for you. Okay, here's the first. It says convert 32 ounces into pounds. Okay, 32 ounces into pounds. Now, I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm going to flip to the back of this packet where I've provided the reference sheet for you. Okay, and I'm going to look up ounces and pounds. Okay, and I'm going to look for a connection between the two. And we're lucky this time because there's a direct conversion. Okay, 1 pound is 16 ounces, so I'm going to use that. That's my conversion factor, and I'm going to write it as a ratio. Okay, so 1 pound is 16 ounces. Okay, and we're going to set a proportion. Okay, so I have another fraction. If the numerator is pounds, then it has to be pounds over here. If the denominator is ounces, it needs to be ounces over here. Okay, they've given us 32 ounces. We're trying to find pounds. Okay, so I fill in my variable, okay, what's missing, and I can solve. Okay, you have the option to cross multiply or use a scale factor for this particular one. Okay, we can do it both ways. Okay, 16 times x is 16x. 1 times 32 is 32. Draw your river, divide by 16, and we get that x equals 2. Or you could recognize that 16 times 2 is 32. and 1 times 2 is 2. And so either way, we get that 32 ounces equals 2 pounds. Okay, jot down any questions you have. We'll do the next one, and then you're on your own. Okay, for this one, they tell us 6 feet. We want to convert 6 feet into yards. Okay, now this is one of those conversion factors that you should have memorized. Okay, New York State's not going to give that to you on the reference sheet, so you really got to remember it. Okay, and hopefully you know that 3 feet equals 1 yard, or 1 yard equals 3 feet. Okay, now that I have my conversion factor, I'm going to set up my proportion. Feet on top, yards on the bottom. They've given me 6 feet. I want to find the number of yards. Again, you can cross multiply or use a scale factor. Okay, so I have 3 times x is 3x, 1 times 6 is 6. Draw your river, divide by 3, x equals 2. Or all you need to do is recognize that 3 times 2 is 6, 1 times 2 is 2. Very similar to the last one we did. Okay, 6 feet equals 2 yards. Okay, when you're all set, flip to the next page. Okay, and over here, you have some to try on your own. Okay, some of these are ones you should know. Okay, for example, yards to feet, feet to yards, you need to have memorized. Okay, miles to yards, you should be able to find on your reference sheet. Feet to miles should be on your reference sheet. Hours to minutes is one you should have memorized. Okay, how many minutes in an hour? Okay, fluid ounces to cups should be on your reference sheet. And then number 6, okay, is on your reference sheet, but it's a 2-step conversion. Okay, so you're going to kind of have to make a pit stop in between quarts and cups. There's no direct conversion. You'll have to go from quarts into something and from that something into cups. Okay, I'm going to collect these 6 problems from you tomorrow, most likely. Okay, so make sure that you've tried not only those 3 metric problems, but these 6 customary problems. Okay, and if you have any questions, jot them down. I do expect you to at least attempt every question. Okay, thank you, and see you tomorrow.